say that AI as a whole shouldn't be entrusted with the lives of people and the safety of countries. AI has already been stigmatized since forever, with actual reasoning of unreliability and so many other factors. With millions of lives and the success of war at hand, AI weapon systems should be criminalized for the sake of these people, for the sake of the vulnerable people on the ground. Proud to propose here. Now, a few extraneous rebuttals and call-outs directed towards the self-opposition, right? They made an extremely big principle contradiction. They wanted to protect people, but the vulnerables of society, but they worsen it instead. Notice how these AI weapon systems only give the larger country the upper hand. Let's compare now. If you were to give the larger countries an AI weapon system, and you also give the weaker country an AI weapon system, the larger country would still dominate in the first place. Even if you so-called protect the citizens in the larger countries, you still massacre and kill more citizens in the weaker countries. You made a principal contradiction here, and you never engaged with this. Number two, they also had a wrong direction in this case, right? This debate was never about who can stop war, because that's entirely impossible, right? This debate was supposed to be about whether these AI weapon systems were urgent in the first place, whether they could actually benefit in the first place, right? This wasn't about giving developing countries the upper hand, right? This was about mitigating the occurrence of the problem of killing worsening on our side, of mitigating of wars worsening on our side. Putting a weak country against a bigger country with their AI weapon system is what is killing so many people. Sure, it's effective for the larger country, but it's exclusively for the countries that are already leading in the first place. Therefore, you cannot win on the metric of vulnerability. Number three, they were unnuanced and engaging, right? Now, they also mentioned something, right? Countries are not trying to expand their territory. Now, a few responses to this here. This is quite literally what Israel is doing right now. Number two, checks and balances don't exist because of Western domination in the UN and in those so-called regulations. Why do you think Israel is still doing this in the first place? Because those checks and balances were never effective in the first place. That is why AI weapon systems would give countries like Israel to dominate even more and to increase killing in war. This is why we mitigate the problem of it worsening while opposition continues to worsen it just because they only cater to larger countries. Now let's talk about the main clash of today's debate here that both sides were contending on for the safety of people, right? Vulnerability and kind of decreasing killing in war. So now let's set a few things here. Right, all considered that the safety of these civilians was their number one priority, right? So they said a few things. They said less people die because air weapon systems are so amazing and they start glazing it as a whole, right? They also talk about how there's more deterrence and how countries won't fight if the outcome is deadly, right? They also said soldiers are being forced to serve in the military and how AI replaces humans here. Now a few engagements to this here. The mechanism they had was never about replacing human with AI. It's just the weaponry. Humans are still involved, except the weapons include AI in the first place. This is why soldiers were still subjected to war in the first place. They cannot claim this benefit. Not here are a few responses coming from outside. Number one, opposition already made that principal contradiction on their side because AI weapon systems don't stop war. You give countries with the resources and the capacity the upper hand that they already had in the first place. Deterrence never mattered because it only applied to the weaker countries in war. Ukraine trying to develop an AI weapon system is not going to help them win or stop the war with Russia. Russia has nuclear weapons and is so much bigger than Ukraine. And if Russia has that capacity to develop the AI weapon system in the first place, we tell that Russia will use this against Ukraine and Ukraine will eventually be affected even more. So this is why this example cannot be used and cannot be credited on their side. This is proof. But even if both countries in war had an AI weapon system, the larger country will always win. Vulnerability is not achieved on their side here. So now, we said a few things. We criminalize and ban this AI weapon system because we prioritize not worsening war and we prioritize the vulnerable people in today's debate, meaning the people on the ground, including people in those weaker countries. We don't support the increased genocide happening in weaker countries in war with larger countries. Developing AI that is such a destructive weapon that was already conceded on the side of opposition, also worsen genocide and war in the first place, right? Now let's talk about the disadvantage here. They responded with a few things. They said the disadvantage was symmetrical on both sides. However, we argue that the self-opposition worsens it. If countries already had a disadvantage, and if you allow these AI weapon systems to be developed in already strong countries, you increase the disadvantage that the developing countries already have. Now, also clarification and emphasis one more time, this debate was never about giving these developing countries that upper hand in the first place, therefore it cannot be credited as a so-called rebuttal coming from their side because it wasn't logical in the first place now. So, they responded with a few things about how countries only develop AI. They won't send it while it's in training. But we argue that this is exactly how AI is trained. You need to actually use it in order to further develop it. You need to actually use it in order to code it. So, example, right? Lisa and I are STEM students. We actually work with AI in the first place. We have to code these AI models and we have to train it first. We have to actually use it. This is how AI is actually developed. So we tell you that these larger countries would have the incentive to send the AI that's still in development to these weaker countries in order to further develop it. it. Because if their main goal was to achieve that strong AI, there would have been incentives to actually train it in war in the first place. Why we still win on this clash is because we prioritize vulnerability. Because this was about the utmost vulnerable, right? It wasn't about giving this upper hand to the already dominating in the status quo. So now let's move on to the second clash of today's debate. About this urgency of these AI weapon systems, right? Opposition, from the very start of the debate, has failed to prove why these AI weapon systems were so necessary in the first place, not why they were so urgent in the first place, even if they were killing more people, right? Opposition had to prove it of why these AI weapon systems were so important, right? And how these systems could help the people on the ground in the first place, right? They only brought up one point here. It's needed to stop wars. Now, let's just clarify this one more time. Both sides were never supposed to defend stopping war. That's entirely impossible, right? The debate was about whether this was useful in the first place and whether we could protect the vulnerable in the first place. Even if I didn't have air weapon systems, I couldn't stop wars anyway. So this is entirely irrelevant. Wars could never be stopped. And deterrence was only exclusive to the already weak and vulnerable countries. Because this is symmetrical anyway. Deterrence exists on both sides because it's only logical that you don't start war if you're weaker. This is something that's already said in the debate, right? We say that AI weapon systems are not needed in the first place. Plus, you make even more destruction in the first place, which is why they worsen everything on their side, which is why they cannot claim the benefit of achieving less deaths, or achieving less destruction in war, right? So now, let's talk about the best case of opposition here. The best case is that countries don't go to war, and it's actual deterrence for these countries to enter war, right? So even if countries so-called don't go to war, we say that it's only for the weaker countries. Larger countries never want to back down. Because if you acknowledge that you are the stronger force in the war, you will never want mediation. Because if you can take it by force, you will do whatever it takes to achieve victory, right? So this is why opposition cannot win today's debate. They cannot prove you actual logical points here to prove that sense of debate that was already weak in the first place. And therefore, I end my case here. Your vote should go to the Blue Dog side of government. Thank you. I've never been this proud to propose.
Speaker spoke for exactly 7 minutes and 8 seconds.
Thank you to the government whip for her solid argument. And now, the opposition whip, the floor is yours.
Testing. Okay, good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. You guys know the drill. I'll be giving some shout-outs, right? So thank you so much to Joel. You're the GOAT. You're my inspiration. You're the reason why Large Debate Society is the way it is. Thank you so much to Keegan Chan. You're the best president ever. Keegan, you're so passionate about debate and you inspire me so much. Thank you to all my teacher advisors. You guys have taken care of us like kids for the past 4 days. I don't know how you do it. Thank you to my coach Ryan Wong for all your training sessions. Thank you to my seniors and my juniors. My juniors are so adorable, guys. Thank you to my family for being so supportive. And thank you to my cute brother. Okay. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, notice how countries argue for political reasons and citizens get caught in the crossfire. Said government leaves these innocent people to die on the battlefield while the rich and privileged have the autonomy to create more ethical and effective weapons, and yet they ban this and they criminalize this and they shun away advancement of technology. And we protect the vulnerable and scorn the atrocities of war, side with all. In my speech today, I'll be giving some call-outs, clarifications, 4 rebuttals, and then 1 way on how our side has more benefits. So now onto my call outs, right? Number one, notice how their entire case runs on the tangent that AI systems are undeveloped, therefore they're inaccurate and dangerous, so you should ban development. I don't think this makes sense, because if something is ineffective and if something is undeveloped, then the logical thing to do is to allow development, to allow AI systems to become more ethical and become more developed, so that it doesn't just blow up in the face of like whatever chip is carrying it, right? And also, understand this justifies why testing should be done in the first place, because technology is effective.
Point.
No, and development should be done. And second of all, they say we never prove benefits on our side, but we have already stated again and again that this causes less people to die. Simple intuition come here. If you have a super effective weapon, then why would I send an ineffective human being in the first place, right? Having someone like a Henry gun, when I have like an Inesh gun that's less effective, I'll just send my Henry gun. So now, clarifications. Number one, what are we defending? We are defending the possibility of a future where wars are not fought between humans but robots instead. Your restrictions defeat this possibility. You restrict the advancement of technology, so there will always be human troops running to war. This advancement leads to a future where AI systems are so developed, there's so many AI systems, it's so accessible that both sides can do this in the first place. We allow developing countries to gain accessibility. I'll be explaining this later. But second of all, we don't run stopping wars, we run less human casualties. This is a practical benefit, so no matter how many principal claims you talk about, injustice or whatever, we still win. Rebuttals here, right? Number one, they say that AI is inaccurate, but I've already told you this is the exact reason why development is necessary. Countries like Israel will always have more tech than countries like Palestine. If they don't use AI, they'll just use other tech instead, like bomber planes or something. And number two, allowing development means at the very least, this will be more accurate and ethical, and this benefits two people, right? Number one, the aggressors. Because Russian troops who are setting up these weapons won't be scared that it will malfunction or blow up. Development means safety for these people. But second of all, about the people who will be targeted, right? If it's more effective, then let's say I can just be killed with one clean headshot instead of them shooting like all my limbs or whatever. This will make my life better as a troop. But number three, therefore we win on the bottom line that more effective AI leads to deterrence. This wins because knowing there's a very destructive weapon could be the tipping point to stop people from engaging in wars and going to negotiations. If I know that you could beat me up with one punch, then I just won't fight with you lah. I'll talk to you and say, hey, please, I'll give you my land. Just stop. This leads to less human casualties because wars stop faster. But number four, why is this development important in the first place? Without development, you just throw the testing phase that you just told about how testing is so important, right? Without development, the testing phase goes out of the window. So you just send untested and undeveloped AI models when countries are desperate. This leads to super unethical wars. But number two, my second rebuttal, you talk about how we kill more people on our side, but number one, we take this down on the basis that more AI weapons means less people being sent to the war. We don't paint a picture. No, we don't paint a picture of black and white. War is grey and messy. War still happens on both sides. We promote a war with less human deaths. But number two, you also say more people will go to war if they have a destructive power. More people will go to war if they think that it's guaranteed. But we take this down because there are checks and balances to prevent abuse of power, like sanctions. You say countries don't care about sanctions. Then what is stopping US from just using all their nukes and bombing everyone and taking over the world? There are sanctions. Countries do care. And number three, right now, Israel has no AI weapon systems and they still go to war. Even if this is true, we kill less people on our side. This is also very simple, right? Countries, okay, number one, if I don't think I can defeat you, I'll just retreat. So we stop war faster. But number two, people also care about your reputation, right? Even if you say that all our sanctions don't work on our side, people still care about their reputation. There's a reason why countries like Israel don't just bomb like have like a lot of weapons, they don't just bomb everyone when they started the war, right? Because they still care. It's unrealistic for countries to completely abuse their power. I don't think the harms are as bad as you tell us. But now onto my my third rebuttal. How you say that countries will have to develop and test this during war, so this will lead to more civilian casualties through testing. I think this is completely false because number one, why would you test these things during war? If I want to test something to be used in war, right, I wouldn't test it during war. I would test it using like engineers or something behind the scenes and then use it during war. But number two, testing of weapons actually happens on both sides. There will always be more weapons to test, right? If I cannot develop my AI systems, then I'll just test my bomber planes on you instead. So therefore, testing still happens, people still die. Yes, a POI.
The only reason wars stop faster on the side is because you kill more people in vulnerable countries.
Okay, sure. Number one, I don't think that is true. I think vulnerable people die on both sides. But number two, even if we take this at your worst case scenario, let's say that Israel has a super powerful AI system that causes all my civilians to die, right? We say that we still win because of like countries have an incentive to retreat faster. We say the reason why civilians, so many people are dying in this Israel-Palestine war is because both sides don't want to retreat. Both sides say there's still more people to send, let's just go, send them all, send them all. When you actually have such an effective weapon, people get scared. People realize that this is a losing war, that there is no way to deplete these AI systems. Because when you have actual people fighting, right, I can kill your people, and now you only have 3 people, so then I win. But AI systems are like, you can't kill them. You can just develop or fix up the robot. So therefore, on our side, you understand that this force is so big, I would rather just negotiate or something, right? But number 4, we win on the basis of criminalization in the first place. Because your entire reason for criminalizing and banning is, okay, let's say this is a boxing match, right? Israel is the one with the boxing glove, aka the AI system, and Palestine is the one without the boxing glove, so they get hit harder. Your like entire thing is like, okay, if the person without the boxing glove gets hit harder, then you should just ban all boxing gloves. No, that's not the case, right? What we should actually do is allow more boxing gloves to be developed so the other side can, like in the very, very far future, get boxing gloves too. And understand, if you take away the boxing glove from Israel, then all the Israelites who are fighting in the war will die more. Because now both sides are on equal playing field, right? But the clash here, which side has actually more benefits? On side government, you keep talking about the injustice to developing countries, where we have given you practical arguments like deterrence and actually saving civilian lives. Why do we win? Number 1, because developing countries will always face injustice. If you ban these AI weapon systems, countries can just develop tanks or guns. These developed countries will always have more resources to get the upper hand in the first place. Injustice will always happen. But number 2, we then tell you that with development, we allow these developing countries to actually gain accessibility. Let me tell you exactly why. Development means cheaper versions being made. Development means like more AI weapon systems in the actual market, right? This means that it will be more accessible. It means that developing countries can actually access these weapons, so there will be more equal playing field on our side. That is why we win this debate. Side with us.
Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 26 seconds.
Well, such a mighty argument from the opposition whip. Thank you. And now I'd like to call out the opposition reply speaker to come forward with your points.
I'll just assume I'm audible to it. My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. This debate is not about whether AI is perfect. This debate is about whether it's better than the alternative. We say it is, and that's what matters in this debate. We tell you the alternative is on our side is very simple. Is that these tanks, bomber planes, and human soldiers carrying guns, running gung-ho into the battlefield, are replaced by AI that it has less moral worth, that is more expendable. This means that those human soldiers that used to risk their lives don't need to anymore. This means that they can feel safe knowing that AI that is not only more reliable to protect your country because they don't feel fear, they are more precise, but number 2, that you don't die. I think it's very simple, the impacts that we have here. What then is the alternative on their side? The alternative is that we don't give anyone AI weapon systems. We just want war that is happening right now. We're using tanks, we're using bomber planes, everyone is on equal playing field because everyone can die. That's not the debate. We tell you here that we are the side that actually stands for protecting your citizens, for protecting human casualties. We tell you here that they try to push a world where apparently like what my whip said, right? If I am in a boxing match, or like everyone's fighting with each other, and my fists like hurt a lot, for example, I put on boxing gloves to reduce the pain. Just because I have boxing gloves and they don't, doesn't mean everyone should not have boxing gloves. It means that everyone should wear boxing gloves in order to reduce the pain. It means that I don't care if some countries are more developed than others, or some have more AI than others, it means that they should continue developing for other countries because of the very clear benefit that we reduce death. It's very simple here. But let me tell you the very clear problems in side government's case, right? Number one, they tell us that AI is unreliable. We tell you that you have to debate why AI weapon systems are how do you say? They actually, what impacts they actually have. You can't come up and tell me, oh, but they don't have money to develop it anyway, so it won't work. That is so soft line. We are debating for the side where AI replaces humans, where the AI weapon system actually reduces human casualties because countries only send AI when they're fully developed. You cannot tell me, oh, but they will send the very not developed one and then suddenly it will be very bad. It's so soft line. But second problem here, they mischaracterize the debate a lot. The debate isn't about solving war. The debate on both sides concedes that war happens. The debate on both sides concedes that casualties happen. But the problem here is that we try to reduce the casualties because it doesn't matter on both sides if humans die anyway. We tell you here that we are the only exclusive side that benefits or that has the benefit of less casualties. They cannot prove otherwise. They give us so many symmetrical harms, right? So let me clarify the whole debate very clearly for you adjudicators. Our side is the side where right now we acknowledge that Israel is fighting with all their bomber planes and USA can use all their nukes. We acknowledge that war happens. We acknowledge that these casualties are very harmful for the citizens themselves. I think these are very clearly proven. But now number two, what we try to solve this problem is trying to develop AI that replaces humans and replaces the risk of death. This is very simple. You can't tell me it doesn't work just because someone has it and others don't. I think it's very symmetrical where you cannot tell me that these less countries or like poorer countries will be less disadvantaged on your side. We tell you here we are the only side that produces for any actual change. No matter what, we reduce the human casualties, and I think that is the metric which we win this debate. But let's take them at the best case. Let's say that yes, we kill AI systems go gung-ho and kill everyone just because countries think they're more powerful than each other. I think we prove here very clearly that the deterrence here is very, very powerful. Not only that countries are less disincentivized to do this because of the fact that there are checks and balances that we have proven that works on Israel, on USA, we tell you here that even if these USA just suddenly decides to kill everyone with AI, we tell you here that the deterrence is less people try to go to war because they know that USA is way more powerful than them, because more people retreat. No matter what, there are less casualties on our side. But now we also tell you here from the first speech that their criminalization of AI weapon system is very, very bad enforced, right? It's very hard to enforce AI weapon systems because they did not characterize what they're actually enforcing. I think the difference between weapon systems right now and AI weapon systems is that AI has autonomy on itself and it can do things by itself. I think then you fail to enforce why we should ban AI technology because you're just defending technology that kills people in general. You're not defending AI, you're defending technology that kills people. You're defending criminalizing tanks, you're defending criminalizing bomber planes because so far all your characteristics just work on the same way for things like tanks because okay, here's your characterization for why we should ban AI, right? It's because it's too powerful, it's because you are that is too powerful and more people will abuse it. This works the same for tanks, this works the same for bomber planes, this works the same for nukes. You fail to prove me how exclusively AI is so exclusively bad. We tell you AI is so exclusively good compared to things like tanks and bomber planes because we reduce human casualty. You tell me, oh, but technology that's destructive in general is bad and you need to criminalize it because it will kill people. We tell you here that AI is used for protecting people, not killing people. We give you many layers of proof for this, but you ignore it, just telling us that AI is unreliable and underdeveloped. You tell us that AI is so unreliable. You tell us that AI is just going to cause more casualties. Very, very asserted here. I think the side that wins is just the side that reduces the impact of war, not solves war. We tell you that we reduce the impact of war because we reduce human casualties. It is very simple that this debate goes to the side of opposition. Thank you.
The speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 22 seconds.
Thank you, Opposition Reply Speaker, for the insightful argument. And now it is time for the Government Reply Speaker to close the debate for the junior round.
Testing? Okay, great. Before I start my reply, I just want to say I dedicate this entire debate towards the senior team. This is all for you guys, gang. Yeah. Alright, so starting my speech on my first word, yeah. Hope I'm audible and visible. I think opposition's case is a little mystical and a little magical because it's a myth. A myth because of the fact that there was never any substantial analysis that actually proved all of their arguments. Try to propose. So what I'll be doing in my reply is one, giving you a few pieces of strategic observations from the case, and finally I'll be just comparing substantives on both sides, right? So firstly, let's start with strategic observations. One, they were illogical. Panel, if you actually listen to all their speeches, notice how most of their analysis have glaring logic loopholes and logical gaps, right? Insofar as they never filled these logical gaps in the first place, their arguments never actually stood. Second, they gave you a lot of one-liners and assumptions. Panel, don't get fooled by their long sentences and rhetoric. They never actually gave you elaboration on their arguments and just assume that, oh, it'll work out. But no, it won't. And they also never actually engaged with our main premise of our arguments. That is to say, we still stand. Third, they also kept strawmanning this entire debate. Do you wonder why we needed so many clarifications in the first place? Because they're slowly reframing the debate in an uncharitable way while misrepresenting our arguments to make them easier to respond to and disguising them as clarifications, right? Finally then, they made a contradiction in their reply. They set up a high burden for themselves in the first place, to stop war, to have deterrence of stopping war. However, then they tell you in reply that it was never about stopping wars. So what was it actually about then? So what was it actually about, right? Now let's go compare substantives from both sides, right? Firstly, let's tackle their mechanism for a little bit. So their mechanism was about using AI weaponry, not they told you about replacing human soldiers with AI. However, that was never their actual mechanism in the first place. It's just AI weaponry, not AI military. They still have human soldiers under their side. But even if it was replacing AI soldiers, right, we tell you that they are still harming the vulnerable because they're still subjecting to weaker countries. They're still subjecting weaker countries to go against full-on AI. That is a destructive war, right? So now let's go on to substantive, right? Now let's start off with the leader of opposition. Ignoring the argumentative setup and the argumentative and biased setup alongside the logical gaps in his argument, he told you about deterrence. The premise of this was, oh, countries have better tech and that means I don't want to fight. But what's to say that these larger and developed countries are going to use this perception to their advantage? Actually, they worsen the power imbalance on their side because they add another tech that these developed countries can use towards their advantage, right? Their argument never stood. But secondly, let's tackle DLO. Ignoring the fact that there was never any real substantive coming from him, he told you mainly about benefiting the country, that is to say, benefiting the people on the ground. He told you that there was less human soldiers because there's no human soldiers, that is to say, less casualties. One, this is already taken down because it's just weaponry, not the entire military, right? Human soldiers still exist on their side. But two, even if we were to talk about retreating and negotiation, right? Countries retreat country because there was too much debt. But secondly, negotiation in itself is impossible because stronger countries always want to win. Why would I give up when I know I'm going to win in the first place, right? So now let's go on to our side. What did we tell you? We told you about unreliability, right? Because it's still developing. Testing needs to be done on these things. It's usually done in wars because the likelihood of this is high because of the fact that countries with this upper hand have no risk in testing it out. And in order to develop this tech, you need the resources, bro. Like, developing countries don't have the capacity or the resources to do this in the first place. They never actually engaged on this. But second, Lisa told you about the abuse of power that happens under the side of proposition. Well, she told you that we don't make it worse under our side and we don't increase the likelihood of more wars happening and killing off the vulnerable civilians, right? So then, basically, the metric of weighing then is that we win on vulnerability, we win on scale because we benefit the vulnerable, because we allow for these vulnerable countries to basically continue like having war in like an equal playing ground, right? But also we win on scale because there's less amount of like casualties happening in our world, right? So as a conclusion, inspired by the lyrics of Hamilton, the audience is asking to hear my voice. The panel is facing a difficult choice, and you know what? But when all is said and all is done, government doesn't worsen the situation, but opposition does. Thank you.
Speaker spoke for 4 minutes and 31 seconds.
Well, what a point to end on from the government reply speakers. I'd like to thank both the government and the opposition for each of your speeches. And now I would like to invite the debaters to nod or bow respectfully. Now I am going to pass the mic to you, Gloria.
Keegan, let's stop.
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow debaters.